Growing up in suburban Ohio, I thought I had the perfect family. Mom, Dad, my little brother Tyler, who was 3 years younger, and me. We lived in a cozy 2-story house with a white picket fence and a small garden where Mom grew tomatoes every summer. Sunday barbecues filled our backyard with laughter, and family game nights around the kitchen table were sacred. Tyler and I would argue over Monopoly while Dad made his famous popcorn, and Mom refereed our sibling squabbles with patient smiles. Everything felt normal. Everything felt right. But something changed when we grew up, and what I discovered about favoritism nearly destroyed me. Before I dive into what shattered our family, forever drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and if this sounds familiar, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. Looking back now, the warning signs were always there. I just chose to ignore them because I believed in the fairy tale of equal love that my parents preached. As the older child, I naturally excelled in school. Straight A grades came easily to me, and by middle school, I was already on the honor roll in student council. My teachers praised my work ethic, my friends looked up to me, and I genuinely enjoyed learning. Tyler, on the other hand, struggled from the beginning. In 3rd grade, he was diagnosed with dyslexia, which explained his reading difficulties and his frustration with homework. My parents handled it beautifully at first, explaining to both of us that everyone learns differently, and that Tyler just needed extra support. They told me I was lucky to find school easy, and that I should be patient with my brother. I believed them completely, and even helped Tyler with his reading practice sitting beside him at the kitchen table for hours. But as we moved through elementary school and into high school, something shifted in ways I did not understand at the time. My achievements began to feel invisible, while Tyler's smallest accomplishments were celebrated like national holidays. When I brought home my report card with all A grades, my parents would glance at it briefly and say something like, "That is nice, honey," before moving on to ask Tyler about his day. When Tyler managed to scrape together a C- in math, they acted like he had just solved world hunger. The pattern became more obvious during my sophomore year of high school. I had worked incredibly hard to get into honor classes and was accepted into advanced placement literature and history. I ran home excitedly to share the news, expecting my parents to be proud of this major achievement. Instead, they gave me a distracted "good for you" while frantically helping Tyler with his basic algebra homework. The same week Tyler barely passed a science quiz, they took him out for ice cream to celebrate his improvement. The most painful memory from those years happened during my senior year. I had worked for months preparing for the state debate championship, staying after school every day to practice with my coach and spending weekends researching my topics. The championship fell on a Saturday afternoon in March, and I had been talking about it for weeks. My parents promised they would be there to watch me compete. The morning of the competition, Tyler mentioned he had a junior varsity basketball game the same afternoon. He was barely on the team, spending most games warming the bench, and had only played a few minutes total all season. But my parents made the choice that would haunt me for years. They decided to go to Tyler's game instead of my debate championship, reasoning that Madeline is so confident and independent she will be fine on her own. I won the state championship that day. I stood on that stage holding my trophy, scanning the audience for familiar faces, and finding none. Other students had entire families cheering for them while I celebrated alone. When I got home that evening, trophy in hand and heartbreaking, my parents were still talking about Tyler's game, where he had sat on the bench the entire time without playing a single minute. The financial inequality became impossible to ignore during our college years. Tyler struggled with his applications, barely maintaining the grade point average needed for admission to community college. My parents hired an expensive college consultant to help him write his essays and choose schools, spending thousands of dollars to give him every possible advantage. Meanwhile, I had earned a partial academic scholarship to a respected state university through my own hard work and merit. When it came time to discuss college expenses, the difference in treatment was stark. My parents sat me down and explained that while they were proud of my scholarship, I would need to cover the remaining costs myself because you are smart and capable and we know you can handle it. For Tyler, they opened up their savings account without hesitation, prepared to pay his full tuition at whatever school would accept him. During college, I worked 20 hours a week at a campus bookstore while maintaining my grades and completing internships to build my resume. Every semester, I carefully calculated my expenses and applied for additional grants to make ends meet. Tyler, meanwhile, called home regularly for money to cover his expenses from textbooks to weekend social activities. My parents always sent whatever he asked for, often accompanied by care packages filled with his favorite snacks and encouraging notes. When I graduated magna cum laude with my degree in marketing, my parents attended the ceremony but left immediately afterward to drive home for Tyler's birthday dinner. There was no celebration for my achievement, no special dinner to mark 4 years of hard work and academic success. Tyler was turning 21, they explained, and that was more important than my graduation. The message was clear, even though they never said it directly. Tyler would always be their priority, their baby, who needed protection and support. I was expected to succeed on my own and be grateful for the independence they forced upon me. Love in our family was measured by how much help you needed, not by what you achieved. After college, I moved to Chicago and landed a position at a growing tech startup. The work was challenging and rewarding, and I threw myself into building my career with the same determination I had always applied to my studies. Within 3 years, I had been promoted twice and was managing a team of 5 people. I met James at a networking event, and we quickly discovered we shared similar values about hard work, mutual respect, and building a life together as equals. Tyler, meanwhile, was struggling to find his place in the adult world. After barely graduating from community college with an associate degree, he moved through a series of jobs never lasting more than 8 months anywhere. His pattern was always the same start, with enthusiasm become frustrated when the work proved challenging and quit before he could be fired. After each job loss, he would move back into our childhood bedroom while our parents provided emotional and financial support. The contrast in how our parents responded to our respective life developments was becoming impossible to ignore. When I called home to share news about a major promotion, I would get a brief congratulations followed immediately by updates about Tyler's job search and concerns about his mental state. When I announced my engagement to James after 2 years of dating, my parents offered us $5,000 toward our wedding, which I gratefully accepted as a gesture of support and love. 2 months later, Tyler decided he wanted to go back to school again, this time to pursue a bachelor's degree in business. This was his 4th attempt at higher education, having dropped out of 2 different programs and failed to complete a certificate course. But my parents saw it as another chance for Tyler to find himself and committed to paying his full tuition. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening in October. My mother explained that they had reconsidered the wedding money and would need to withdraw their offer. Tyler's education was more important, she said, and they knew James and I could afford our own wedding since we both had good jobs. Tyler needed their help more than I did, and family meant making sacrifices for those who were struggling. I hung up the phone, feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. It was not about the money itself, though $5,000 would have made a significant difference in our wedding budget. It was about the message Tyler's 4th attempt at something would always matter more than my first attempt at anything. The holiday gatherings became increasingly difficult to endure. Christmas morning at my parents' house felt like watching a performance where I was the forgotten understudy. Tyler would unwrap expensive gifts while I received gift cards and afterthought presents. Last Christmas, Tyler received a brand new MacBook Pro despite not having a job that required it, while I got a $50 gift card to a restaurant I had mentioned liking once. Every conversation at family dinners revolved around Tyler's potential, his latest plans, his newest girlfriend, or his recent setbacks that required family support. When James and I announced we were buying our first house together, the news was overshadowed by Tyler's decision to change his major again. When I shared that my company had landed a major client, partly due to my work, my parents listened politely before launching into a discussion about whether Tyler should try therapy to help with his career anxiety. The most frustrating part was how my parents had reframed the narrative to make Tyler's constant need for help seem noble, and my independence seem cold. They spoke about Tyler with such tenderness and concern, always making excuses for his failures and celebrating his minimal efforts. They spoke about me with a kind of distant pride, as if my success was expected and therefore unremarkable. The breaking point came during the spring of my 28th year. Tyler had been arrested for driving under the influence after leaving a bar near our parents' house. The car he crashed was theirs, a sedan they had trusted him to borrow for a job interview that apparently never happened. Instead of letting him face the natural consequences of his choices, my parents immediately bought him a replacement vehicle and hired a lawyer to minimize his charges. 2 weeks later, my reliable Honda broke down on my way to work. The repair estimate was more than the car was worth, and I called my parents to ask for advice about car shopping. My mother listened to my situation and told me she was sure I would figure out the best solution because I was so good at handling things on my own. No offer of help, no concern about how I would get to work, just confidence in my ability to solve my own problems, while Tyler received immediate rescue from problems entirely of his own making. The final confrontation happened on a Saturday morning in May. I had driven home unannounced, needing to pick up some documents I had left in my old bedroom and hoping to have a calm conversation with my parents about how I was feeling. What I discovered when I walked through the front door was a scene that perfectly encapsulated 28 years of differential treatment. My mother was in the kitchen at 10 in the morning preparing Tyler's favorite breakfast of blueberry pancakes and bacon. She explained that he had been having a difficult week since his arrest and needed cheering up. My father was in the living room on the phone with Tyler's lawyer discussing strategy for his upcoming court date and researching the cost of alcohol education classes. Tyler himself was still asleep in his childhood bedroom at 10:30 on a Saturday morning. He was 25 years old, unemployed, living rent-free in our parents' house, and sleeping until noon while they bustled around taking care of his responsibilities. Meanwhile, I had driven 2 hours from Chicago after working a full week, and no one had even acknowledged my presence. I sat down at the kitchen table and attempted to have the conversation I had been rehearsing during the drive. I spoke carefully and calmly about feeling invisible in our family, about the pattern of Tyler receiving help while I was expected to handle everything alone. I gave specific examples: the missed debate championship, the withdrawn wedding money, the contrast between Tyler's new car and my transportation crisis. My parents' response was everything I had feared and expected. They became defensive, immediately explaining that Tyler had always struggled, while I had always been fine. They insisted that love meant helping family members who needed support, and implied that I was selfish for wanting recognition for achievements that came easily to me. My mother delivered the line that would echo in my mind for months afterward. "Maybe if you were not so cold and independent, you would understand family loyalty." The word cold hit me like a physical blow. I had spent my entire life trying to be the daughter they could be proud of, working hard in school, building a successful career, maintaining a healthy relationship, and never asking for help unless I absolutely needed it. And their interpretation of my strength was that I was cold, that my independence was a character flaw rather than a survival skill I had developed in response to their neglect. As my voice rose and 28 years of suppressed frustration poured out, Tyler finally emerged from his bedroom. Instead of listening to my concerns or acknowledging any validity in my feelings, he immediately joined forces with our parents. He accused me of being jealous of his relationship with them, of being bitter about his struggles, and of trying to create drama in the family. The three of them stood together in that kitchen, united in their belief that I was the problem. They insisted that Tyler's constant need for help was just evidence of their close bond, while my success was proof that I did not need them. They could not see that their definition of love had become entirely one-sided, that they had taught Tyler to expect rescue while teaching me to expect nothing. My father delivered the final insult. If you cannot be happy for Tyler's successes and supportive during his difficulties, maybe you do not belong in this family. The irony was stunning. Tyler had never once celebrated my achievements or offered support during my challenges, but I was expected to cheer for his minimal efforts while remaining silent about years of being overlooked. I gave them an ultimatum that surprised even me. I told them they could acknowledge the favoritism they had shown Tyler his entire life and commit to treating us equally going forward, or they could lose me entirely. I was done pretending that their love was fair done, accepting scraps of attention while Tyler received the full meal of their concern and support. They chose Tyler's comfort over truth, just as they always had. They refused to admit any wrongdoing and accused me of trying to manipulate them with threats. So I walked out of that house, got in my car, and drove back to Chicago, knowing that I was truly on my own for the first time in my life. The first week after our confrontation, my parents clearly expected me to apologize and return to the family dynamic we had always maintained. They sent a few text messages asking when I was coming home for Sunday dinner, as if nothing had changed. When I did not respond, they called James to ask if I was okay and to suggest that I was overreacting to a simple family disagreement. But I was not overreacting, and I was more than okay. For the first time in my adult life, I blocked their phone numbers and removed them from my social media accounts. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. I no longer had to brace myself for phone calls that would leave me feeling invisible and unimportant. I did not have to attend family gatherings where I felt like an outsider in my own family. James became my anchor during those first months. He had watched me struggle with my family dynamics for 3 years and had always encouraged me to set boundaries. He never tried to push me toward reconciliation or suggested that blood relationships automatically deserved forgiveness. Instead, he supported my decision completely and helped me create the space I needed to heal. My coworkers noticed the change in my demeanor almost immediately. I had more energy for projects, I laughed more easily during meetings, and I stopped checking my phone constantly for messages that would ruin my mood. My work performance improved dramatically when I was no longer carrying the emotional weight of feeling inadequate and unworthy at home. Planning our wedding became a joy instead of a source of stress. Without my parents' opinions and Tyler's potential drama hanging over every decision James and I created exactly the celebration we wanted. We invited our closest friends, his wonderful family, who had welcomed me with open arms, and my Aunt Sarah, who had always been more of a mother figure to me than my own mother. The ceremony was intimate and beautiful, held in a garden overlooking Lake Michigan on a perfect September afternoon. As I walked down the aisle toward James, I felt nothing but joy and anticipation. There was no sadness about my parents' absence, no empty chairs that represented broken relationships. Every person present was someone who truly loved and supported both of us. 2 months after I stopped speaking to my parents, Tyler was arrested again. This time, the charges were more serious, and the pattern they had enabled for 25 years finally became impossible to ignore. Other family members began reaching out to me sharing their own observations about Tyler's behavior and our parents' unwillingness to let him face consequences. My Aunt Sarah told me that she had tried to talk to my mother about the favoritism years earlier, but had been shut down. My cousin David mentioned that family gatherings had become uncomfortable for everyone because the conversations always centered on Tyler's problems, while other people's achievements were ignored. Hearing these perspectives helped me realize that the problem had been visible to others all along. I was not crazy or overly sensitive. The differential treatment had been obvious enough that extended family members had noticed and felt uncomfortable about it. My parents made a few attempts to reach out as Tyler's legal troubles escalated. They sent cards on my birthday and Christmas as if we were distant relatives rather than family members who had lived in the same house for 18 years. But they never acknowledged the issues I had raised or showed any willingness to examine their own behavior. 6 months after walking away, I received the promotion I had been working toward for 2 years. Senior marketing manager came with a significant salary increase, expanded responsibilities, and the respect of my colleagues who had watched me earn the position through consistent excellence. I celebrated with James and our friends, feeling proud of my accomplishment without the shadow of family disappointment. The therapy I started during those months helped me understand the dynamics I had grown up with more clearly. My counselor helped me recognize that my parents' enabling of Tyler was not actually love, but a form of control that kept him dependent and stunted his emotional growth. She also helped me see that my independence, which they had framed as coldness, was actually a healthy response to an unhealthy family system. I learned that walking away from toxic relationships, even with family members, is not giving up or being cruel. It is protecting your own mental health and refusing to participate in patterns that diminish your self-worth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their destructive behavior, even if they interpret that boundary as abandonment. My marriage to James has been everything I hoped it would be. We make decisions together as equal partners. We celebrate each other's successes genuinely, and we support each other through challenges without keeping score. He has never made me feel like I am asking for too much when I want basic consideration and respect. I have built a chosen family of friends who show up for important moments, who remember what matters to me, and who treat me as someone worthy of love and attention. These relationships have taught me what healthy family dynamics actually look like, and they have healed parts of my heart I did not even realize were broken. The hardest lesson I learned through this experience is that you cannot make people see your worth, but you can stop accepting treatment that suggests you have none. I spent decades trying to earn love that was never going to be given freely, trying to prove my value to people who had already decided I was less important than someone else. I understand now that my parents' treatment of Tyler was not actually helping him. By rescuing him from every consequence and celebrating his minimal efforts, they robbed him of the opportunity to develop resilience, work ethic, and genuine self-confidence. Their favoritism damaged both of us in different ways, making him dependent and me invisible. Looking back, I feel gratitude for the strength I developed through years of being overlooked. Learning to rely on myself to celebrate my own achievements and to build my own support system served me well in creating an adult life filled with genuine relationships and meaningful work. The independence they criticized as coldness became the foundation for everything good in my life. I learned that asking for basic respect is not asking too much, and sometimes the family you create is stronger than the family you were born into. The question is not whether I will ever speak to them again. The question is, will they ever become people worth speaking to? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family or dealt with obvious favoritism that everyone pretended was normal? Drop a comment and share your experience, because you are definitely not alone in this struggle. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about family dynamics and finding the courage to choose yourself. Share this with someone who might need to hear that walking away from toxicity is not giving up, it is growing up. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth is not determined by how much other people need you, but by how much you value yourself. Until next time, keep choosing your own happiness.